Welcome to DreamSpeak. Before we get started, a big thank you to our listeners in Arlington, Texas, Kansas City, Missouri, Tampa, Florida, Lyme, New Hampshire, and Newton, Massachusetts. Thanks, and keep dreaming.
Hi, dreamers. Thank you for learning with us today on DreamSpeak. I'm Rika,
And I'm Thomas.
and this is the podcast about dreams that teaches you a complete system to help you listen to your dreams and get the guidance they're providing you every day.
Over the years, we've realized that symbolic dreams, the spirit world, and lucid dreaming are all connected. Our discussion with longtime lucid dreamer Nikki Houser sheds light on the underlying unity of these powerful experiences. Our guest today is Nikki Houser. Nikki, welcome to the show. We'd love to hear you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your connection to dreams.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. We had a really great conversation over dinner one night after meeting, and here I am on your podcast. So this is wonderful. So I was born and raised in Chicago, Northwest Indiana, very industrial part of the country. My grandparents immigrated from Italy, came over on Ellis Island. And in Northwest Indiana, one of the things that brought them to that region was the work, the industry, and primarily was oil. I don't want to say the name of the company, but gasoline and the steel mill. And so, as you can imagine, the air quality wasn't very great in the region I grew up in. The water wasn't that great, the waterways. And for that reason, many individuals on my mother's side of the family passed at very young ages. And I'll circle back to why I'm bringing that up in a moment. And so, at 50 years old, I am the oldest woman on my mother's side of the family. So, yeah, so it's kind of crazy. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I feel very strong draw to the dream world, the spirit world, the natural world. But I don't have a lot of my matriarchs to teach me what they've known from the old world, right? The things that they learned, the things that they endured. And so when I ask them, they come to me in my dreams. So, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. So, born and raised in Northwest Indiana, I was working for a really great marketing agency and was transferred down to Tampa, Florida. My husband and I got married. Soon after we moved out here to Colorado. I've got two children, teenagers, if you can believe it, and it is a whirlwind every single day. In the midst of all of that, I myself was diagnosed with cancer at 44 years old. And so the past 5.5 years, I have been working through various different surgeries and recovery. And now that is in my rear view, and I'm ready to move forward and just start living my best life and be the best me that I can be. With that being said, now being of this ripe age that I am and having all this world experience, and I've traveled and I've done all these fabulous things and great careers, I'm finding them in this weird position where I'm having a hard time re-entering the workforce at this age. You know, Number one, there's a huge gap in employment, right? I worked all through that time, never stopped working, but mostly part-time. And, being of a certain age, and I've been out of it for so long. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you're working in the marketing industry and you take a 10-year break, things change. So, and the reason why I bring that up is because I turn to my dreams and my divination a lot for answers on what I'm meant to do now.
Well, that's a great introduction. I can relate in a lot of ways after raising children. And then I really started my own career in my 40s, and I never worked for anybody else again. I was always my own boss after that. And then I think it would just be impossible for me to go back to working, for somebody else.
It's funny that you bring that up because, with this stage of my life, my husband goes, "There's no way you're going to listen to anyone telling you what to do. You're going to say, go shove it." I mean, the reality is, right, once you've lived so long, you don't wanna listen to others. I did start my own LLC during all of this. I do RV rentals. I did an Airbnb, RV share, and that's been great. I learned to RV, I deliver, I set up, I know how to do all the maintenance. It's been very empowering pulling a 30-foot trailer up the mountain and setting it up for people that don't know how to do it. I started that LLC. It's been great. We recently parlayed that into a construction business. So my last name is Houser. That's my married name, Houser. And my husband's been in new home building for 20 years as a licensed contractor. So we started our business called House RX. So it's our name with the RX like a prescription. Tagline is home healing starts here. And our website is houserx.co. And we do basement remodels, bathroom remodels. We take existing homes and switch them to your needs that you have now. So, for example, because our life is changing, right? Our kids are growing, our space is changing. This room that I'm sitting in now was my guest room. And, now it's an office because what's the point of a guest room when you have guests twice a year, right? So, people are aging and they need more ADA upgrades, or they want to turn their basement into a game room, book nooks, all the things. So we've had quite a few so far. It's been pretty great. Of course, as you know, as a business owner, it takes several years to really see that to make money. Let's just be real. Constantly push it back in, whether it's into marketing, whether it's into your, you know, all of the things. So it's doing well for us, but I feel confident in the next 5 years. I'm going to look back at this time and say, huh, that's why it happened. I am an empath. I can kind of see what people are feeling or how they're feeling or what they're thinking before they say it. And so my husband and I kind of make a really good team. He can do the dirty work. He can hire the contractors. He makes the plans, and I can go in and say, okay, here's the vision. So it's been good for us. So houserx.co, home healing starts here. And that's a woman owned company. And the tagline helps because with the whole camp thing and the whole healing of our family and the whole you've been through these past years with moving cross country, all the things, it makes sense.
So is that what your dreams were showing you? Like, where are you getting the guidance from your dreams?
It's interesting because my dreams lead me kind of in different directions. So my dreams lead me towards my creative path. I mean, I'll be honest, like construction isn't sexy to me, right? Like it just isn't. People like my husband and I together, if that makes sense. My dreams lead me towards the things I enjoy, RVing. I bought a little patch of land in New Mexico and I have visions of like putting a yurt there and like renting it out and doing retreats. And, of course, there's no infrastructure. So it's huge. Like you have to dig a well and you need like a little latrine and, there's no power and they have the solar panels. Like it's a big project.
Yeah.
But I have chickens and I want to have chickens. Whatever I do, I want to be able to have my chickens. Those are my girls. I have 9 of them. Only one is laying right now. Those freeloaders in my backyard, hers. If that was a farmer, those chickens would be credited on the kitchen table. I've been a vegetarian for 32 years. So we're just freeloading pets. They eat organic, all the things. But I do fun videos with them. I rescue some. I have special needs chickens. People call me when they're like, "Hey, we hear you're the chicken whisperer." And I guess we should start talking about dreams, huh?
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about, you said the last time we were together that you had a lot of lucid dreams. And that's something that, I occasionally lucid dream. Thomas doesn't lucid dream very often. But I think a lot of people are really interested in that and how how you do that, or does it just happen to you? Or, what's the whole process and why do you think you're such a big lucid dreamer?
Glad we're going to talk about this. So I didn't even know there was a name for it until relatively recently. And because I've been doing it since I was a child. In fact, today I just looked up what it was, and I don't even think the definition of what the internet says it is even comes close to what it actually is. So So yes, I've been lucid dreaming my whole life, not intentionally, not like I guess you can like make yourself do it or whatever. That doesn't happen to me. I just enjoy dreaming so much that it is like a mini vacation for me every night. Now, it doesn't happen every night, the lucid part, but I can't wait to go to bed. I'm like, see you guys later. Like, I'm going to bed. I'm going to go somewhere cool tonight. Something cool is going to happen. And so let me take it back a little. So, my very first lucid dream that I remember, I must have been under the age of 7 because at age 7, my parents split up. So, we were in our childhood home. And at the time, I was obsessed with Casper the Friendly Ghost, that cartoon.
Yeah, yeah. I remember.
Casper was my buddy. I don't know, just goes to show how I've always had that connection with the spiritual realm. He was my buddy. I mean, I wanted Casper as a friend. I wanted him to come over. I wanted to hang out. I wanted to go on swing set. Casper, come and visit me. And I guess that I willed that to happen because Casper would come and visit me at night when I was sleeping. And we would fly around my room. And I had this canopy bed. It was red and white, and they had like this swoopy thing. The canopy was swoopy, and we would have so much fun sliding up and down the canopy and whirling around my room and laughing and giggling. In fact, I remember my mom coming in one time, and I was sitting up in my bed cracking up. It must have been so scary for her. She's like wildly giggling child in the middle of the night in the dark. What are you doing? And I was like, nothing, I don't remember what I said, and she's like, "Well, go back to bed," and I was playing with Cass. So, I don't know, and then as a teenager, I had a couple lucid dreams that I could remember specifically. Now, when I was a teenager, they got darker, and I think that they got darker not only because of puberty, but also because I started dabbling a little bit in dark arts. You know, I have very different feelings now about Ouija boards, but when I was younger, I thought, "Maybe this'll be fun." And I won't touch one anymore, and that's probably another story, but things got very dark in my lucid dreaming then, and I would be visited by dark figures at night who would hold me down, you know, obvious temperature changes, things like that, and now I don't know, maybe it wasn't a dream, right? Maybe it was truly some spiritual being in the room, I'm not sure, but I would sleepwalk, and I remember one time specifically, I must have been sleepwalking, and I woke up on the bathroom floor. My mom came in, she found me on the bathroom floor, and when she turned the light on, everything in the room was upside down. All the pictures were upside down, and we had this, like, little towel holder that, like, sat on the countertop, and you, like, folded up little towels and stuck them in there. That was turned over, the cup was turned over, like, the soap dish, like, everything was turned upside down. And so, you know, I don't know, like, that may not be lucid dreaming, like I said, but definitely at a certain point, it got scary. Once I cleansed the home, did some crystal things, my mom and I said rosaries because she was starting to see things too, things lightened up a bit. Then as an adult, especially now as I have children, usually when my dreams go to a place where my children are in danger or myself, I can fly, and that's just so great. And I have remembered flying also from a very young age that I can do it. I can just fly. Sometimes when I'm in a really beautiful place, I will say, "Oh, these trees, I've never seen trees like this before. Why I want to go up in the trees and smell the blooming flowers at the top of the trees. And I want to fly next to that bird and see, I want to look them in the eye." And I don't know, it's just a wild thing. I don't know. Do you fly, Rika, when you lucid dream?
Well, I actually had a dream this week where I did a little bit of flying, but it was just indoors, and I was sort of levitating and flying, and it happens usually for me when I've maybe overcome something or experienced something really positive where I was able to elevate myself, elevate my consciousness. That's when it usually happens for me. I remember though when I was having a period of a lot of lucid dreaming, I was flying. But I've also had a lot of dreams where I would run and sort of leap and I couldn't get very high. Like my flight was low, like I could fly, but I couldn't get up very high or get up where I wanted to. So it's sort of like I practice flying in my dreams sometimes. So where do you think that comes from? Just your like I think a lot of people might think that's an elevated state of consciousness when you're able to fly. What do you think about that?
I'll take that. That sounds that sounds great. An elevated state of consciousness because when I was younger and I had shared with somebody that I loved that I can remember my dream so vividly that I sometimes have to pause to figure out if it actually happened or if it was a dream. That person had indicated that that could be a sign of schizophrenia or some sort of personality disorder. To which I immediately shut down my sharing session on my dreams. And so when I say that sounds great, like it really feels good to be validated because this truly is a big part of my life. Okay. So a third of my life you can't share with others because you seem quote unquote crazy. Right. And so I'm really grateful for you guys for having this platform where people can speak openly about their dreams. It's no place to judge anyone. It is a third of your life that you should be able to share. In fact, my daughter has, I don't know that she can lucid dream. I think she's getting good at it, but she has very vivid dreams as well. And a lot of times in the mornings, we'll share where we went last night, you know? And that's pretty cool that she's comfortable to do that because I never felt that way. My son is convinced he doesn't dream, which, he just doesn't remember from what I understand. And he'll get there, I'm sure. But we need to talk about these things. One of the things I don't like about dreaming, and maybe you guys can help me with this, is when I have feelings of being betrayed by people I love. Like that happens once in a while, and it's usually when I'm feeling less than in my waking life, right? I get a lot of betrayal dreams. And so when I wake up, I am really pissed off at that person. I know it was just a dream, right? I know that it was just a dream. And 9 times out of 10, I woke myself up from that dream because I can do that. I can say, ew, this is an icky thing happening. You need to wake up, Nikki. And then I can do that. But I'm still kind of pissy in the morning. And I'll just say it. I have dreams with my husband. Okay, so I'll be pissy in the morning and I'll be like, "You know what you did last night?" And he's like, "Oh, no, what now?" Like, we've been married a long time. We've been together over 20 years. "What I do now," he always says. And then it's always something like, an affair or, hiding something or betrayal, just basic betrayal stuff. Now, this man, he would do anything for me. I mean, he's been the ox that has pulled this family through the mud, through this whole journey. He's amazing. But I'm mad at him about things he does in my dreams. So,
Oh, well, I
mhm,
don't so talk about that a little bit. I'm sure Thomas has some advice about that because that happens to us too.
that's it.
I have
Okay.
dreams of Thomas making out with some other woman or having an affair. I mean, that and you've had the same thing, but we look at it the way we usually look at it is that this is not them doing that.
Well, one of the first things you got to do is you got to see, was this dream a symbolic dream or not? In other words, did this dream have a message for me beyond its content? Because we know that you can have a lot of different kinds of experiences when you're asleep, not just, message dreams or symbolic dreams. But if there is symbolic content, which is trying to convey a message to you, then at that point, we believe that all the people that show up in our dreams are just parts of us trying to make themselves clear. What do you think about that, Nikki?
So what you're saying is basically holding up a mirror. So in some way, I'm being dishonest about something, or I'm being maybe not dishonest. Maybe that's not the right word.
So when in our dreams, say Thomas is having a relationship with some other woman. So what I would do is I would look at, well, he's a part of me, this other woman is a part of me. So he this part of me that is represented by Thomas is wanting to create with a different aspect. And so I have to look at what that other aspect is and see, you know, and he's a subconscious part of me. So there's a part of me that's wanting to create something different. So it doesn't mean he wants to have, a relationship with somebody else. There's a part of me that wants to create something else, not necessarily just what Thomas and I have created together, but there's some other part of me that wants to create something new
Mhm.
or different. So that's how I would look at it for myself.
That sounds way more healthy than just being mad at your spouse about something he did to you in your dream.
It really helps us to not be mad at each other because we realize, through doing this work that we see it differently. Because it's so easy to just say, "Oh, you were such a jerk last night in my dream, and you did this," and sometimes it's just hard because it's an emotional thing and it brings a lot up. But I don't know. I think it's helpful for our relationship to just recognize that. It's not what it seems.
Well, that's helpful because I think in all my years, I take my dreams at face value. I mean, they're pretty, I've always said, well, it's pretty self-explanatory what that one meant. It's never really way out there. It's usually pretty straightforward. For example, we just got back from a road trip, like I'd mentioned, and I'm a big chicken lady, and my chickens have been cared for by my neighbors while I'm gone, and they're not chicken ladies. And so that last night on the road, what did I dream about? Dreamt about chickens, and I dreamt that they were dying, and I dreamt that they were cold, and I dreamt that they were thirsty, and all the things. And so I did wake myself up from that dream. And the first thing I told my husband that morning is, I need to get home to those chickens because I'm dreaming about them being sick and uncared for. Now, I got home and they were fine. It wasn't the level of care that I gave them when I was around. But like my neighbor forgot to come over that last day and like clean their coop and feed them and water them. They were fine. But my point is like I know that that was on my mind. Apparently,
Right.
like subconscious, and that's why I dreamed about it. But
And it was probably not a message dream. You were connecting with your chickens. And so that's a different kind of dream. It's not one that you are interpreting really. You're experiencing that because you're so connected to your chickens.
yeah,
So
I know.
you knew what they were going through. Yeah.
So I have one thing that I wanted to add. So there was a period of time I skipped over when I was going through my dream life, and that was the early 20s. And in my early 20s, I lost my mother and I discovered narcotics. And the reason why I bring this up because the dream state, first of all, I'm not endorsing it. It was a very ugly, ugly time in my life, and I had to get help to get through that. But the dream state, it's interesting as an avid lucid dreamer who loves to dream, but you're in a dream state all the time during your waking hours. Does that make sense? And so as I reflect back on those years, parts of it, like I can't even recall any dreams from that time period. I don't know, that sounds weird, but I think it's because I was just living in a dream. And it wasn't a super long period of time. It was probably, you know, 6 months to whatever, a year, but I don't remember ever enjoying my dreaming. Maybe it's because I never slept. And another thing I noticed too is I'm sober-ish, I might have a glass of wine here and there nowadays, but I've noticed that, gosh, the dreams aren't any good if you've had any sort of substance, they're really not. Like, when you are clean as a whistle, it is a ride in of itself. You know what I mean? Like, it is magic. And so, if there's ever anyone out there that's struggling with any sort of addiction or substance, like, it's it's in your bedroom, just lay down on your pillow with a clean mind, and that'll be your new happy place because it really is. It's cathartic and it's healing, and it sure is a whole lot more vivid when your body is healthy.
Well, when people tell me that they don't remember their dreams, I always ask if they, you know, take something or drink or do gummies before bed or whatever, because I think it really affects people's ability to dream. There seems to be a correlation.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I think even a single drink tends to affect most people's dreams for sure. The other thing too, Nikki, is I go in and out of phases of remembering my dreams. They're not long phases. Like I might go like a couple of weeks without remembering a dream, or I might remember, 3 or 4 dreams in a week. That would be a little unusual for me. Usually I remember like 2. And I was kind of like your son many years ago. I went through my teenage years not remembering any dreams. And, I intentionally rebuilt my relationship with my dream life. But it seems like anything that people do that might disrupt their dreaming does. It seems like it's a pretty subtle thing. I think it's totally natural, it's totally instinctive. I think it's an experience that everybody has, some sort of dreaming or nighttime, life going on every night,
Mm.
but their ability to actually engage with it or to recall it, it's pretty sensitive. And if we do things that are not in balance, it definitely throws off that sensitive balance.
Yeah, I noticed because I've been traveling a lot this month. I was gone for 2 weeks, and when I'm out of town or out of my routine, I usually don't remember my dreams very well. Like, I need my dream space in my bed that, as soon as I come home, oh, the dreams turn back on, but when I'm gone, it's or out of my routine, it's hard to remember my dreams.
For me too. Do you remember your dreams just as much when you're traveling?
I mean, I did this past trip. I can't say that it was every night, kinda like you a couple times. But yeah, I like to RV, so that's my happy place there. That's like my she shed on wheels. So I do a lot of good dreaming in there. But yeah, I typically don't have any problems finding a spot to dream.
Well, when we're out in nature in our little teardrop camper, you know, that is a good place for dreaming too, just being connected because there's just something about being out in nature that connects you. I think with that higher part of you, your higher self, it's easier to connect to spirit, at least for me.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have some interesting dreams when we're camping or backpacking.
Have you ever done much backpacking? Because that's a huge dream thing for me.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So for me, I think the reason why is exactly what Rick had just said. It just amplifies the nature connection so much. And in our symbolic way of looking at dreams, and I feel the need to say this again, not every experience we have at night is meant for interpretation. So I'm just talking about symbolic dreams here. But in our symbolic way of looking at dreams, our subconscious mind or almost source energy, something very close to source energy, is symbolized by nature itself. So, like by the woods and natural settings and landscapes. And so there's a metaphor here to waking life because when you put yourself out in the middle of the wilderness with no anything, no campground, no RV, no nothing, because we love our RV, but I get a very different level of dream experience when I'm backpacking. So you're way out there and it's all nature, and then you're just in a little tent. I have a metaphor that I think of that as almost like what we do with our phones at night. It's like you're plugging yourself back in, and it just really supercharges the importance of my dreams a lot of times.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, let me know when the next backpacking trip is.
It's winter. It's gonna be a while.
I like your attitude though.
So my son, who doesn't remember his dreams, quote unquote, right? Sleep talks almost every night. I mean, full on blibbity blabbity blue and sits up and just and sometimes they can pick out words. It's usually involving video games or basketball. Whatever's in his world. But he is a talker. So he's dreaming, right? Wouldn't that be, I don't know. Maybe.
I absolutely think so.
I definitely, because
And that happens to me.
that happens to Thomas, and usually that will wake him up, and then I'll be like, "Record your dream," because I know he's been dreaming. When he's talking in his sleep, it's always connected to a dream you're having.
Yeah, and I don't know how far this generalization extends to other people, but for me, sleep talking is indicative of tension, inner tension.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually a lot of times, those are not the most pleasant dreams that you're having.
I have to yell at something.
Or
That's how I try to scare something away.
Yeah.
It's usually trying to scare something away.
Which is not what your son is doing, obviously. He's not yelling at stuff. It's just kind of funny because I yell at stuff.
You do.
Well, that makes sense because they are very urgent. They're very urgent statements. I don't always make up what they are, but they're very urgent.
Okay, cool. And, then also you said that he'll sit up. This to me just indicates not being in a deep state of relaxation.
But you said you slept walked when you were.
And that I did, good call. And that's what I told him. I said, I think maybe it's just puberty and genetics because when I was young, I mean, like I said, I was walking all over the house. There, in fact, I would go outside. My mom found me in the backyard when I was probably 10 years old, and in my late teens, we have a lake house. I wandered outside, I was laying next to the lake. Luckily, I didn't wander into it. So yeah, I mean, I would hide the car keys. Yeah. I mean, how terrifying though as a parent, right? Like you hear someone at the back door, you check that your child missing, back the jar, child's not around. Oh, there she is, sleeping near the lake.
My son went through a period of sleepwalking as a teenager too. And I remember that because we went on a river raft trip and we were sleeping in a tent in the top of a cliff. And I was pretty paranoid because this was his period of sleepwalking. And he did get up in the middle of the night. And, I just had to be alert for that because I didn't want him to walk out of the tent and just, go off the edge of the cliff. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, I'll say.
And I did do a little bit of sleepwalking when I was a kid too. Did I ever tell you that?
You did.
Yeah.
Do you
So
remember anything about it?
not really. I don't remember like walking all over the house. It was mostly just in my room. Remember going in my closet once, but I'm really not sure what that is all about. I don't know very much about it.
We haven't looked into sleepwalking. We should do that more. I'm sure that there is a lot that's actually known about it, and I think you're probably right that it has a genetic component. But, if we look at it from a spiritual level, because I'm a strong believer, I think Rick is as well, that all of these different levels happen at once. Whatever it is that happens with us that might be physiological, it has spiritual connections as well, or in spiritual meanings. And it does feel like, it's a time of intense transformation that could create a huge amount of inner conflict.
Mhm. Not easy being a teenager.
When's the last time you had a visitation for your mother?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. It comes around pretty frequently. In fact, she'll come around when my waking hours as well. And it's not like, a big light of, mom swooping in. It'll be, I'll ask her for comfort, especially when I'm going in for scans and things like that for at the oncologist or MRIs or CT scan. I'll just say, mom, I need you here. I need a hug and things like that. So she comes in a lot and it'll be a song, that'll play. She was really into music. A song will come on. Dreams, like I said, the matriarchs come in. It's weird because it's not a lot of the men from my family, but my grandmothers and my aunts and my mom. I can't tell you the last time, but it happens pretty frequently, and it's when I need it the most. See, this is when I get teary-eyed because, I had just turned 21 when my mother passed, and being a young woman and not having, her to guide me through, like, gosh, that's a tough time, right? That's when I discovered drugs after she died. Having to figure it out on my own has been tough, and so all I needed to do all along was ask. All I needed to do was ask for the guidance and the help, and at the very least, just the hug, right? Because if she was sitting here right next to me and I had a problem, she wouldn't necessarily have the answer, but she could comfort me or hug me or make me feel important, right? And so that's the same thing she does. And my aunts and my grandmothers, they do in my dream states as well. When I'm feeling like I just need that support, that feminine guidance, they come in with that. So they're not, prophets with all the answers. They're just being what a grandmother or an aunt or a mother would be, is the one that lifts you up.
That's wonderful. You have that connection and that you can access that so easily when you need to. Yeah.
It helps that I have their pictures all up in my like, I have this little altar right next to my bed, and I have some of their belongings there as well, their rosaries and, some things that belong to them, and I just have it right there, and I have a little ritual before bed that doesn't necessarily involve them, but, I'll put my diffuser on with my essential oil, and I'll, do all the things, get the pillows just right, and they're just right there. They're just hanging out right there in the room. And then my husband's like, "Okay, ladies, good night."
So, do you think that this is sort of unique to you, or do you think anybody can do this?
I think anybody can do this. I mean, if there's somebody or something that you want to call in, if we're talking spirituality here, call it in. And if you're going to sleep, and I think this is what lucid dreaming is, because like I said, I don't know, I didn't read the book on it. If there's something you want to call in and you're thinking about it as you fall asleep, if you continue to do that, right? Eventually, if you're open, you'll probably get that desired outcome. I've just been doing it innately for so long, not with a manual, but it's just I called in Casper when I was a little girl because I wanted a buddy that was a ghost that can fly around with me, right? I mean, truly. So call it in, and then my wish came true, right?
Well, I think at that age, I would have been like, Casper, I am afraid of ghosts and I don't want you in my bedroom at night. So please don't come and visit me.
He's the friendly ghost, though.
I know, but I was afraid of ghosts when I was younger.
Less so now.
Oh, yeah, less so now. Now I would welcome Casper.
You do welcome energies and
I
spirits,
do, I
don't you?
do. But then there's also,
Caution, right?
yeah, with caution, like you said you went through the dark period, and so I always, if I feel negative energies, I will send them away. Like I know how to do that now, but if you didn't, that could be scary. But I think we are able to set those boundaries, but we just have to know that we can do that.
Exactly right, because 'cause you're in charge. In that state, in that dream world, you're in charge. You're the boss. You're the CEO, right? You called the shots.
Sometimes I think I've had this idea that the dream world is really the real world, and this world is the unreal world because we have all these abilities, which I believe that we really do have. Like our soul has this ability to be omnipotent, all knowing, all seeing. And in our dreams, we can achieve that state. And our waking world is sort of tamped down where, some people have developed these abilities or maybe are born with them or they're innate. But I think a lot, we don't know how to connect with that part of us.
I don't know what your experience with death and dying is, but if you've ever been with an individual as they start their journey to beyond, they are in a dream state typically. And if they're lucid enough to be able to verbalize what they're seeing, I feel like we're only going to get those answers when we're on our way there. Does that make sense? So I don't know that we're meant to know all of the things and be all knowing and be all enlightened and all the things now. We are on a path to get there, and we certainly will if we're open to it, but that's kind of that step into the great beyond. I can say that when my mother was taking her last breaths, she called out to all the people that were waiting for her and by name, that was pretty great. And knowing that her sister and her parents and her, you know, I mean, just the names, and she was excited and her heart was racing, like she was in her mind, she was running to them, right? She was sprinting to hug the people that she hadn't seen in so long. And that was so peaceful for us on this side, on this earth, to witness that, like to celebrate that.
Well, I have been reading a lot of near-death experiences that people have had. I've been sort of fascinated with that over the past few months. I don't know, it just brings me a lot of comfort, I guess. Just knowing that almost all of them that I've read anyway so far, they say that it's just beautiful, and they become one with everything, and that it's just a beautiful experience. And I've had family members in the last couple of years. My brother and my father died in the last couple of years, and so I guess that brings me comfort, to know that there's something wonderful lying on the other side.
Your brother had a great dream about his brother that brought all of us a lot of comfort.
It did. My one brother lives in Ireland, and the other brother who died, they were very close. And the night that my brother passed, or he passed early in the morning, my brother had a dream, and he saw him in the dream, and the brother who died looked very happy, and he was standing in front of this door, and he had this key, and he was gonna open the door, and my sister was in the dream too, and she's like, "You're supposed to be dead."
Yeah.
And he just smiled. I don't think he even said anything. He just looked and he grinned and he opened the door and he was just going to this, great beyond.
How lucky for your other brother to be chosen.
Yes, yes. Yeah. I think, he wanted to let us know that he was fine, He was good, better than fine.
Better than time.
So great.
Yeah.
I really feel like you have a lot of respect for the idea that we don't need all the answers. Your whole way of dreaming seems like it's characterized by that your dreams are characterized by having experiences, not so much by getting messages.
I think so. I think, like I said, I take them pretty much at face value for the most part. I get a lot of messages during my waking hours anyway, and it could be, like I said, as long as you're tuned into it. So it could be something as simple as hearing a song or, seeing a certain type of bird or somebody saying something right at that moment, just being tuned into it, right? Running late and then finally getting to your destination and realizing there was an accident on the same road that you took that happened 5 minutes before if you would have let on time. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah.
tuning in to, like, all of those things, like, oh, I don't know, just paying attention to it, I suppose.
Yeah, where our flight was delayed coming back from Philadelphia on Friday, and we missed our connection to Durango by 5 minutes.
Less.
Less than 5 minutes, they closed the door, we were running, and Thomas was just like, "Well, there's probably a reason," you know, and just go with it, we don't know why. And then we met this very interesting Lyft driver, and I thought, well, maybe, the next day, because we couldn't get another flight till the afternoon, we were stuck in Phoenix for an entire day. But, I was like, well, maybe this was why. Maybe we had to make this connection with this woman. Who knows? You know?
Absolutely. It wasn't meant to be is the old adage, but truly, like, if you take it a step further and say, what is the message that was meant to be, right? What is the message here? What is the learning here? I'm really working hard on that instead of getting irritated and upset about things not going my way. Just what am I supposed to learn from this? What is the message?
I think the very creative mode of dreaming that you have had intrinsically, like a gift in your life, seems fluid and reminds me a little bit of the way that emotions work. And I'm curious what your relationship is with your emotions.
Well, I mean, like anyone else, of a woman of a certain age, your emotions are all over the place along with your hormones. But I try to be aware, I guess, of them as much as possible. I'm very hot temper, you know. And what does my son say? He says I rage. Why are you raging? And I say I'm not raging. I'm parenting. Me. My husband's really good about recognizing too when I need to regulate emotions and take a break or go camping. I do by myself sometimes because I just need to reconnect with myself and nature and hit that reset button. There was something else I wanted to throw in and now it's escaping me. about that. Oh, I know what it is. So I probably should write down my dreams because I'm assuming you guys both do.
We record them on our phone. Same idea though.
Like a voice memo or
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So you can do that with your eyes closed. It's very fluid.
That's a really good idea. I guess I should get more iCloud storage because I keep getting a notification that I'm full. To get more. Oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so that is a really good idea because yes, I have good control-ish over the dreams with the lucid dreaming and whatnot, but a lot of times I will have these wild dreams, not that I have like tentacles for eyes or anything, but like full on like storyboards for movies, like full on. I feel like the dreams last all night long and they have cast of characters and they have music and they have settings and scenes and I mean I'm not saying like clackboards like Hollywood and cameras, right? It's not a behind the scenes thing. It's we're in the scene, right? It's like a fourth break the fourth wall, but really good stories. And I'm like, gosh, if I start writing these down, I could be a screenwriter. You know, there's never enough. I'm sure there's never enough to do an entire movie, maybe a short, but I don't know. Does it ever happen to you where you just have these really creative dreams that you're like, that could be a short story or that could be a book, or I don't know where that came from, but I would read that. I would watch that. I don't know.
Yes. Mostly for me, I've composed music when falling asleep. That's happened over the years, and it's great. It's really special.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you're supposed to write stories. Write them down.
Yeah. We'll start with the voice memo. Sounds a lot
Yeah.
more efficient.
Oh, it is it? It doesn't take long. Usually, most of my recordings are, less than 10 minutes for sure. Yeah, you might have a 30-minute recording after one of your big nights, who knows?
Big night. That's a good idea.
We do that because they escape. They go away very quickly. So, Thomas will hand me my phone or, it's next to the bed. So it's just easy. And sometimes even in the middle of the night, I'll record a dream if I wake up at, 2 a.m. or something.
Me too.
Because by the morning, I'll probably forget it. Can't hold on to it.
And then what do you do with them? What do you
We
do?
interpret them
Then we interpret them, usually at dinner.
because they're symbolic dreams. These are
Yeah.
primarily messages. Typically, the things that we are remembering, the things that we prioritize to be that last thing that we remember after waking, they're messages. And they are comprised of symbolic elements, and they have that information, about how we can make our life better and more joyous and less stressful.
Both where we're doing well and where we have room for improvement. Because sometimes, like the doing well dreams are pretty fun. I'll usually do gymnastics or, like I said, flying or
Backflips.
flips. Those are my little symbols that you're making progress, Rika. Good job. But
But the ones that are darker are just as much a kindness from within us. They're just trying to make sure that they get our attention.
we did, wasn't it a YouTube video on nightmares? Because I think a lot of people really misunderstand nightmares. And, it's just our soul trying to get our attention in a greater and greater way. Like the 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 subtle ideas that our soul may be giving us at night, if we're not paying attention, it'll get louder and louder until we finally cannot ignore it any longer. And so we'll get nightmares. But it sounds like a lot of your dreams are not symbolic, that they are, like Thomas said, experiences that you're having or connections or like a whole other life. And that's why it's so much fun to go to bed.
It is, but it would be nice to get a little deeper. Maybe they are maybe there is symbolism in there, right? But I'm just not seeing the forest for the trees, right? And so it would be nice to try to dig a little deeper. And I think a good place to start would be recording in the morning what I can recall. And so, how do you interpret, like, what I mean, I know you've been doing this a long time, but how do you interpret the things? Where do you start? you just feed it into a machine and it spits out a like answer?
No, no machines, just our brains. We do have a YouTube video on how to interpret a dream in 5 minutes. That's the quick version. But basically, we look at the people in the dreams and what they represent as a part of us, if it's a symbolic dream. So we write down all the people, we write down the symbols that, everything can be a symbol, even the tiniest little thing. And maybe you only remember, a small thing, but to us, it seems like everything has significance. And so we write down the symbols, we write down the people, and that's where we start.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean that's usually enough to unravel the entire dream if you actually look carefully at the main symbols and all the people. So for people, we will usually say the first few words that come to mind, and you have to be brutally honest. And in my opinion, there is no brutality to it; it's only love. But our soul is nakedly honest and objective. And so what's interesting is that dreams are coded in this symbolic language, but I don't think it's actually meant to hide anything from us. I've never quite figured this out. I contemplate the nature of dreams all the time. I don't think it's meant to hide things. I think it's the most elegant and beautiful language that could ever be conceived of. It's holographic. Everything has meaning down to the smallest, most minute detail, and so much more is conveyed by something immersive like a dream than just using words. And so we use a linguistic model for interpreting symbolic dreams, and it seems to work very well. And so with people, we'll write down or list, just discuss the first few things about them that come to mind. But the reason I was giving that disclaimer about honesty is it's so important to realize dreams are about what is in our sphere of control. And I think this is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever realized through my dream interpretation, because to me, it speaks very highly of creation itself, of the universe, of the benevolent nature of the universe. Because if symbolic dreams are guidance, and we believe that they are, if they were actually commenting on anyone else, it would be inappropriate because we're in charge of the choices that are ours to make. And so we have found dreams only speak to us about things that we can control. And for that reason, when you describe someone else in a symbolic dream, sometimes it's pretty negative. And you have to understand you're just talking about yourself. And it's a really cool thing, actually, because you'll be looking at this person, you'll be like, liar, this person's dishonest, like they're pretentious. And then you just turn it around, you're like, okay, damn, I've been deceiving myself and I've been pretentious as hell. And you just kind of realize, okay, this is what I'm trying to tell myself. And so that works really well with people. And then with symbols, there are two sides to this coin. To understand something symbolic in a dream, no matter how minor it is, there will be a universal case. There are symbols that have, like every symbol basically has a universal meaning that is shared among all of humanity. I think they're probably culturally mediated and they probably vary from, say, one continent to another, but some of them are probably shared globally, like a doorway, for example, right? That's a part of every human society. But then, see, to fully understand a symbol, the other side of that coin is you have to add your personal associations. So the meaning of something symbolic in a dream does not exist separate from your subjective experience with that thing, nor does it exist without the universal meaning. They're one. And so, like, for example, so candle is all about a flame, right? And so fire is a transformative force. That's essentially the universal meaning of fire in a dream. And then if I were to, if this was something in my dream and this candle was lit, the personal associations I would bring to it would depend on the candle, right? There could be a fragrance. There would be another level of meaning encoded there in terms of my personal associations with that fragrance. Contexts in which candles have been important, even if they're not present in the dream, they're implied. And so just because you don't actually see something in the moment in a symbolic dream, it doesn't mean that that meaning is not echoing through that symbol. And so, just for me, just off the cuff, you've got the transformative power of fire, which is essentially like a force for change. And then it's controlled in a really cozy, healthy, good way. Like it's not going to burn my house down. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm working with in a way that makes me feel good, that things are, there's change happening, but it's working for me. And then it would depend on the candle. Like if I was building an altar in my dream and it was a sacred candle or like a ghee lamp, then it would be a very sacred energy of transformation. But if it's just, routine candle in my house and I blow it out, maybe that's like either transformation is concluded, or it could even be like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to blow this out. So those are all personal meanings that, work with that universal meaning. And that's kind of how we start. And so you can start with anything. You can start with the people. You can start with a symbol that draws your attention. But I always think of it like a sweater, and you're just like unraveling it until it's like back to yarn, and once you have the yarn, you're like, I understand everything about this.
And, you have to also look at the emotions that you have in the dream, uh, has to come into play.
hmm I think emotions actually are one of the most efficient ways to unlock the meaning of a message dream. And they seem to be another carrier of meaning. It's like its own thing. And so it doesn't even directly relate to this idea of universal versus personal. It's like a whole other level of meaning that's just constantly present in dreams. And it's really helpful. Yeah.
And we look at numbers, we look at colors, like things that you might notice in your waking life too. Like 1 o'clock. One is unity, so I have a lot of one o'clocks in my dreams like I have to get to the plane is leaving at 1 o'clock, or, something. So it's, so and three is creation, and, in different there's different meanings for numbers depending, but your soul knows what resources you have to look at and what you believe. You know what I mean? Like 3 might mean something different to you than it means to me, but in my dream, a 3 will show up when, there's creation happening.
Our souls want to talk to us. They really want us to be able to hear these messages. That I'm completely convinced of. And again, that to me is really good evidence that even though dreams for most people are pretty inscrutable and mysterious, they don't exist in the form in which we experience them to confuse us. I think that's a really common misunderstanding. A lot of people who are curious about dreams but don't have any methods, they'll sometimes get frustrated really quickly and sometimes retreat back to the standpoint that dreams don't have meaning, that they're just kind of random whatever going on, but they do.
And we have some books that we use too, like of symbols.
We've used 2 books for the entire time we've been interpreting dreams, and that's really all we've needed.
hmm And the way we got one of our books was a roommate of ours who was very connected to his spirit, went and wanted to buy us a gift. And he said, well, my guides told me that this is the book that you need. And he was so right. It was the perfect book for us. And then we also use totemic symbolism. We have some books for totemic symbolism of animals and birds and things like that, because those are always significant in the dream.
Are you into that kind of thing?
Well,
Shamanism?
did you say totemism or shamanism?
Shamanism is what I said last.
Yep, I am. I dabble in a lot of things. I am so wholly open to all of it. Interestingly enough, I have visited many a bookstore in the dream interpretation section and perused the books, flipped them open, and said, "This is malarkey," and slammed them shut and put them back. And I said, "This isn't resonate with me, right?" And so maybe I need to find out which ones you are using.
Get a book by Pamela Ball.
Yeah, 10,000 Dreams Interpreted.
She has a few titles, but she's a remarkable dream worker, in my opinion, because she has remained completely anonymous. She has no internet presence. She has no page on her publisher's website. She has given no interviews. It's not clear whether the name is a pseudonym or a pen name. No one knows who this person is, and she is gifted.
Love that. That's good. I felt like I've done a pretty good job for the past 50 years interpreting my own, but I think I could probably take it deeper, especially now, like I mentioned, I'm at this turning point. And so maybe these messages have been coming through, right? I'm just not seeing them. Like you said, your soul or your spirit wants to talk to you. And that really resonated with me. And they want to talk to you in a meaningful way, not just chit chat through the night, which is basically what I've been doing. So I really appreciate that so much.
I'm really glad you're inspired by that, but I want to make it really clear to you that with all of the experience we have with dreams, I'm sure Rika would second that your dream life is extraordinary. It's very memorable. Yes. There's no chit-chatting. You're having a super meaningful experience. It just might be that another dimension is ready to open up for you.
Well, I really like a way to harness that, and I don't know, maybe I don't need to. I just really am looking forward to dreaming tonight. I'll tell you that.
That's awesome.
And the first book that we started with was authored by people from the School of Metaphysics, right? Barbara
Condren
Condren.
and Daniel Condren, School of Metaphysics in Windy Vale, Missouri.
Yeah. And what's that book called?
It's called the Dreamer's Dictionary.
Or the Dreamer's Dictionary. Yeah.
Really obscure book.
Yeah. And we used that for several years. And it's much more compact, but it gives, what is that thing in the back?
There's like a glossary, there's an appendix, and then there's like a little introduction. And those things are just packed with wisdom. The front section and the very back, other than the dictionary part. So like reading before the dictionary, reading what comes afterwards is very mind expanding because it explains their entire
Philosophy.
and their entire model of how to interpret dreams. Is very practical.
Yeah.
And it works.
Model of mind
Mhm.
also.
Yeah, their model of mind, the 3 levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't even pull that book out hardly at all anymore because we had memorized that whole thing within the first couple of years, I think. But it was a good start for us. And then we got the Pamela Ball book, and that was a great addition. And then we used the Ted Andrews books, Animal Speak, Animal Wise, for our totemic symbolism books. We like him.
No, not so good. So good. I have my YouTube channel and it's a mess. I mean, it's the best, but I really just love putting stuff up there because it's authentically me and it has zero focus. Really, it has no focus. I would do much better if I had a film crew just following me around, like all of us, I'm sure, because the tomfooleries that happen daily. But I'll tag it on the YouTube channel's growing.
Oh, spaghetti Galarita. I know. We subscribed.
Yeah, and I think I watched all the videos.
So much. I'll add some more. It's a testament to my mom who said, just throw spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just being Nikki and just throwing spaghetti at my YouTube channel and seeing what sticks. And I think the most views I have is on my rubber egg that one of my chickens laid. So
That was interesting, actually. Why did that happen?
it just happens if they don't have enough calcium,
Hmm.
which they have enough calcium. These girls get everything. It is just, she was just having a day. She was having a day.
Yes.
Well, we just want to say a huge thank you to our guest, Nikki Houser. And we are so glad that we started the conversation, but hopefully it will be just the beginning of a longer conversation about dreams.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. And I can't wait to go to sleep tonight and see what sort of adventures await me.
You can find this podcast on all popular streaming services. Email us a dream today at contact@dreamspeak.us. Check out our YouTube channel for a free introductory dream course. Connect with DreamSpeak for even more learning. Our socials are in the description. Our theme music was composed by me, Rika. This podcast does not constitute medical advice. If you have concerns about your well-being, talk to your doctor or a mental health professional.